And the Pentagon says the United States will be announcing an end to large-scale joint military drills with South Korea. This comes as part of the president's America First policy towards North Korea and his continued negotiations with Kim Jong-un. The president views the exercises apparently as too costly for the United States. And joining us tonight is Dean Chang. He's Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation's Asian Studies Center. Dean, good to have you with us. This is creating something of a stir in the foreign policy community, if I can put it that way, the establishment certainly. The president doing what he thinks is right to keep the temperature correct for further talks with Kim for denuclearization of the peninsula. Your thoughts?
Well, I have to admit that on this issue, I tend to actually agree with the establishment, mostly because what we are seeing is the U.S. making an important concession. These very large-scale joint exercises allow both U.S. and South Korean forces to practice defensive operations. And what have we gotten, especially after the second summit, from the North Koreans? We did not get a list of nuclear materials. We did not get a list of nuclear facilities or equipment. So it seems like we're giving something for nothing. And let me note here, the North Koreans are in the middle of their winter training cycle involving exercises up to perhaps 1 million troops.
Mm-hmm. And we have how many troops in South Korea that could participate with the large-scale exercises of South Korea? It's not very many.
20,000 American troops, which is a pretty significant number.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it's not a significant number. I'm just saying it doesn't approach 1 million troops that otherwise the South Koreans are putting in the field, correct?
Right. The South Koreans are the largest portion of that exercise, yes.
So there are a number of questions that spring from this, and I understand the difference of view in part because the establishment does what the establishment does. It creates a status quo and then adheres to it in perpetuity. This president is trying to break a string of orthodox attempts at dealing with Kim Jong-un or his predecessors in North Korea. You mentioned the second summit. It's only been over for 2 days, and we're trying to assess the impact of this. This is it would be like turning to 1985 to assess how well Reagan is doing in coming to terms with Gorbachev and the end of the Soviet Union, don't you think?
Well, I think President Reagan didn't end U.S. NATO exercises in exchange for unclear promises. Now, to be fair, though...
You said exchange. The president has given up what?
Well, he's basically ordering the halt to these exercises.
Oh, no, but I'm saying, what has he given up? His predecessors in dealing with North Korea gave up tangible, significant aid for nothing. This president has given up nothing other than exercises that cost a great deal of money, represent a sharing of the field in preparation for combat of basically 2 divisions of our military against 1 million South Koreans who are in the field carrying out exercises to defend their homeland, right?
I think you mean North Koreans. Yes, the South Koreans...
No, I meant South Korea.
Yes, South Korean and U.S. forces are jointly exercising together to send that message to the North Koreans. Now, I happen to agree with you. I think that about the issue of what has not been given up. We are still holding the line on sanctions, and that is absolutely essential. And there's a reason the North Koreans were unhappy. It's that we are holding to those sanctions.
Right. It's an interesting thing to me, Dean. We seem to talk about we, as in adhering to sanctions and to maintaining them, because we're in agreement. But we talk about the president ending large-scale military exercises when we disagree. In both cases, it's we. It's the United States government making these decisions led by this president. And that seems to be a very difficult piece of language for some of the people in the establishment in Washington, D.C. to grasp.
Well, I think quite a few people...
I know you do. I'm talking about them.
I think quite a few people, unfortunately, have yet to come to terms with the actual election results of 2016.
Right.
And
the
that
poor
is
things, the poor snowflakes. Isn't it something? I've never seen a nation in such a commiserating mood for the Democratic Party is it just can't struggle and find its bearings to deal with the disappointment of Hillary Clinton not being in the Oval Office. That's not exactly the kind of maturity one would expect from a major political party. It's sort of interesting where we are. I remember Jimmy Carter talking about what others described as a malaise in the land. At least it afflicts only half the country. That is a positive, don't you think?
It is, and I would remind some of these folks that, to quote a previous president, elections have consequences.
Ah, yes. I believe, was that Obama by any chance? That was the president's predecessor. And you're right. It does have consequences. And we are watching a judiciary. We're watching the political establishment of the Democratic Party, the geopolitical elitists, the global elites, U.S. multinationals and Wall Street arrayed against this president every step of the way. It is remarkable what he's been able to achieve. Well, let me get your thoughts on Venezuela. Can I do so quickly? I know that your expertise is China, but I also know that you have a world view that includes, of course, this hemisphere.
Well, I think that one of the most interesting things in this regard is how the Chinese are probably taking away this president's responses to places like Venezuela, as well as what's happened in North Korea. I think that any trade summit between President Xi and President Trump is going to take note that he was willing to walk out with regards to Kim Jong-un, that he is holding the line with regards to Venezuela, where China has made major investments. And I don't think it's an accident that the Chinese themselves have been cutting their economic ties to Venezuela, because they're recognizing that in this situation, they actually don't want to be backing the weak horse.
Absolutely. Ding Cheng, it's always great to talk with you. And come back soon, and we'll take as long as necessary. There's so much to talk about. We got to maybe, 5% of it tonight. Thanks so much.
Come
back
soon.
Me.